What's up, y'all? It's your girl Amanda, and welcome to another episode of the Dope Confidence Podcast. You know, I speak to amazing individuals that have carved their own paths that are in alignment with their purpose. I'm super excited to bring a guest to you today. Her name is Destiny Thomas. She is a Prayerpist. You're asking yourself, what is that? Well, you're going to learn that today. I'm excited about this conversation. I love when I am connected with people that are in alignment with who I am, and especially with my faith. So we're going to bring her in. Y'all say what's up to Destiny Thomas. Let me bring her in. What's up, Destiny?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing, girl?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. Well, I'm excited, like I said, about this conversation because you call yourself, you're known as the Prayerpist. And I'm like, well, what is that? Tell me a little bit about what a Prayerpist is, and then we're going to jump into the reason why you became known as the Prayerpist.
So a Prayerpist is basically someone who does inner healing. It's basically the word prayer and therapist together because it's Holy Spirit led therapy. And so you meet with me either via Zoom, face to face, and we do very similar. I went through therapy, so you do very similar to therapy, but it's led by Holy Spirit. So the things that come up in the session are things you've never told anyone because we identify the root of a thing. But you don't only get language for those things like rejection or abandonment or identity, but you also leave with strategy on how to maneuver those things in your life. So if you are someone who struggles with needing control, you can say all the time, yeah, I know I like control. I have to have control, but what are you doing about it? And so you actually get direction from Holy Spirit of how to, God, give me a keyword when I'm in control and not you. And he'll give you a keyword. And so it's just a work that I'm like so in love with and so passionate about because I've seen time and time again how God speaks to his children in ways that only he could and say only things that he knows.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love inner healing. I love inner work. And so this conversation is going to be very deep, but very profound and healing for some of you guys that are listening or watching this episode today. So you haven't always been the Prayerpist. And oftentimes, you know, I speak about our pain leads us to our purpose in life. So how did you get here? You just didn't wake up being the Prayerpist. How did you get there? What journey led you to being who you are today?
So I actually battled infertility. So I got married at 21 years old. One thing that my husband and I, because we did get married so young, we used to say we wanted to wait to have children. So we wanted to wait 3 to 3.5 years. So I always like to start telling my story with what if you don't get anything from what I shared today, watch your words, right? Because they don't have a sense of humor. And so, of course, we weren't saying it maliciously. We just wanted to enjoy each other and things like that. But we ended up getting pregnant very soon after getting married, but we miscarried. And for my husband, it wasn't like not a big thing, but it wasn't like something that he, was moved by or bothered by. But for me, my husband's father is deceased. And so he's the one that carried the legacy. And these things turned on for me like, oh my gosh, did I make this man marry me and now I can't give him kids and, those things. And we tried for a year to have a baby again and nothing happened. So then I was confused, like, we weren't trying and we had a baby. Now we're trying and it's not working. And so I went to see a doctor and they diagnosed me with polycystic ovarian syndrome, or P.C.O.S. as most people know it, endometriosis, and hostile mucus. And so I was like, what is all this? And long story short, I found myself on a 3.5 year infertility journey. And during that journey, I was in the insurance industry, moving up the corporate ladder. And I was really upset with God because I had served God my whole life from the age of 8 years old. I could hear the voice of God. And I'm like, I'm doing it the right way. I'm married. I have a house. We even had a R500 Mercedes-Benz minivan. Okay. And we can't have kids. Like, God, what are you doing? Right. So, I was like, God, why are you doing this to me? But I was taught at the time, you don't question God. And so I found myself literally in what appeared to be prison because it's like the person who they're telling me is in control of giving me a baby I can't question, right?
Yeah.
And so me being super green personality, super analytical, I was like, I'm gonna find a way around this. So I picked up paper and pen and I created a diary for me and God. And I just
Hmm.
fleshed out all of my truth, like the not so
Wow.
nice truth. And I, for about a month and a half, 2 months, I was just venting, crying out to God. And I all of a sudden, about a month and a half, 2 months in, felt the unction to write GS and then keep journaling.
Hmm.
But I didn't think nothing of it. I just kept going. And then about a week and a half, 2 weeks into that, I felt an unction to go back and read the GSs. And I was like, oh my God, he's responding to me. And
Wow.
everything I was venting and fleshing out, he literally was responding. And I now know what it meant. But the GS stood for God Speaks. It was when he was taking over the conversation.
Wow.
And so, of course, now I was like, oh my God, you're talking. I'm going to ask you about everything now, my marriage and my work and all the things.
Right.
And I, of course, one of my main questions was, God, why am I going through this? Like, God, you say you
Mm.
love me, and my body's rejecting me. I feel like you're rejecting me, and my marriage
Yeah.
started to fail. When you go through infertility, that's one thing that happens because it's lack of
Mm.
communication. It's you're, doing the things on a timer. It's all those things. And I was like, God, why is this happening? And he was like, because number one, you having children is bigger than you. God gives you those things, right? This is bigger than
Right.
you. But he was like, more importantly, the way that you want your children to be a blessing to you. I want you to be a blessing to them. And you are broken. You are dealing with
Mm.
rejection, abandonment, and loss of identity at a level you haven't even confronted.
Wow.
And that is where Prayerpy started. But it was just for me at the time. It was something that God and I was doing. He was taking me through this inner healing process, making me see myself, making me look in the mirror, making me
Yeah.
confront my daddy issues. But that's how it started.
Wow. And in that season where, you had that period of time where you couldn't conceive a baby, did you feel like your confidence in God, maybe the confidence in yourself was starting to deplete over time?
Oh, absolutely. My husband, like, so I was the one when I got with my husband who was like gun ho for God. Like, I love God. I spoke in tongues. And my husband's like, what happened to you? Because during that journey, like,
Mm.
I told God out of my own mouth, like, I want nothing to do with you. Because at this point, you are saying you love me. I wrote a book actually, and in the book, the chapter is about like, God, why do you hate me so much? Because
Wow.
that's what I was saying to God in journaling. Like, why do you hate me so much? Like, I've lived according to the book, but this is how you repay those that sacrifice for you. Especially because at the
Mm.
time, everywhere I looked, people who didn't want kids was having kids. People who wasn't married was having kids.
Hard.
So it's just around you. You're like the people that according to the Bible, according to living up to you, are being rewarded for bad behavior. And here I am,
Wow.
giving you all of me. But one thing I would say is it's a reminder that, you know, this was bigger than me. Like I think about everything that came from it. I think about even how he instructs me to parent my children.
Hmm.
It broke generational curses that I wasn't even mature enough
Wow.
to do at that time, if I be honest.
Wow, wow. And it's just wild, for those that, are believers would understand that like sometimes God takes you on this journey and there's no destination like when you use GPS, right? And you're navigating your life. There's no destination and you're like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what
Mhm.
you're doing, but at some point like you had to come to a place of surrender and trust and
Mhm.
like it's all in your hands. Like I trust
Mhm.
you. I don't know where this is going, but I trust you and I believe that there's going to be a turn in my journey and that's what happened for you. So you started journaling and you're having your conversations with God and you're still married, still trying to work things out with you and your husband, your relationship, you're still working your job, slowly moving up the ladder and the corporate ladder, and then something else happened. Talk to us
Mhm.
about that.
So I finally conceived my first child.
Okay.
June of 2014 is when I found out I conceived. He was born February 2015.
Okay.
And so I was, thankful, God, you did it. You did what you said you did. And that story in itself is like crazy of like how he did it, how he revealed it, all of that. And so I'm going along with life, right? Now, one thing I will say is and you guys will probably hear a little bit of cooing in the background because my third and final baby is here with me right now.
Third and final.
Third and final. I wanted to be put on the record, okay? But but when I had my son, and God does that, right? He shows up for you, and then He will test if you really trust Him. So I had my baby, and when I had my son, God said, "I want you to go back to work, but only part time. I'm transitioning you out." But I was like, "Baby, that don't make sense. Now I got a baby. Now we got all this infertility debt, Jesus, and now
I
we got
need
a baby."
some money.
But that's where the money's at, okay? And so I heard him. I went to work after maternity leave. I talked to my managers and them, and I was like, I'm going part time. And they were actually about to approve it. But before I had my son, there was a position I applied for, no lie, 6 times, and I never got it, right? And I came back to work. I'm at my desk, and they're reviewing the paperwork to make me part time. And the hiring manager for that position comes to my desk, and she says, "We're hiring for this position, and I didn't see you post for it." I said, "Oh no, I'm about to go part time. I had no intentions of posting for it." She was like, "No, we need you. I will hire you on the spot. You don't even have to interview for it." And I heard God say, "But that's not what I told you to do."
Yeah.
But I took it anyway because I was like, "This has to be God. I wanted this position for so long." So long story short, I didn't obey God. I stayed, and that was the worst year of my life. I went to work every day crying. I don't know if people understand, but when you aren't close to God, there's this fear that follows you everywhere you go of, is something going to happen to me? And that was literally what I was going through every day of my life. And so October or September, God started saying it again. I'm calling you out of your job. And He was like, I'm about to prepare you to leave your job. So the second time around, October of 2017, I had no choice. I said, I got to follow Him this time. And so, yes, October of 2017, He told me to leave my corporate job and that He would tell me what was coming next after that.
Wow. It's like, you better, after all of that, all of what you've seen for being disobedient, you better say yes, okay? Yes. Show second chance. Okay.
Right. Get it right.
It's crazy. It's like, oftentimes as believers, we want to make our money. Yeah, we do. We sometimes we get out of alignment, right? We chasing paper, not purpose. And what happens? The job you was praying for, huh? The job you was praying for that was the best thing ever became the worst thing ever.
That part.
Wow. So you listened.
I listened. I was like, I ran up out of there. I was like, but the wild thing is, before I even left, I ended up having to go on medical leave because I would walk in the building and I would have anxiety attacks, and I never dealt with anxiety in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like, I was like, my heart would be palpitating. I was like losing it. And so I ended up going on a medical leave. And as I was on the leave, I was like, okay, God, I got to make sure I'm hearing you. I was in my prayer closet for like 8 hours a day. Like, God, is this really you? But He made it crystal clear, and I ended up leaving. And then when I left, He said, I want you to write your first book on your infertility journey and the importance of trusting me as much as you say you do. And also, I want you to go live and pray for my people. And I was like, and He had me praying at 10 o'clock at night, and I worked 8 to 4. I said, I could have did this and worked. I could have still went to work and did this praying later, okay? Like, I could have did both. I told Him that for us. I was like, God, I could have worked on the book in the middle of the day, at work,
It's 10 o'clock stuff. Come on now. I got a baby and a husband and a job.
And a job, okay? Well, I ain't got a job because He told me to quit the job. But yeah, right. But I quit and I obeyed, and I was like, God, I'm out here because you told me to. And literally, I fought Him for about a week and a half with the live thing, but I finally went live and started praying. And this lady came on live prayer, and live prayer in itself, it started going everywhere like wildfire. Like, people were sharing it, and I was like, what is happening? And this lady messaged me, and she said, oh my gosh, you literally just read my journal verbatim. I need you to teach me how you hear from God the way you do. And I said, I don't know how to teach people this. And she came again because I said, I don't know how to do it. I don't know what that is. And she left and she came back again. And I was like, I told you, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Wow.
And came back a third time. I said, you know what? I'm out here with God. I might as well just ask him at this point since you keep asking me about it. And I took it to God, and God said, this is where your purpose is. I want you to teach my people how to hear from me and heal with me.
Wow.
And I
were
went
you
back
nervous?
Huh?
Were you nervous? Were you having some like imposter syndrome going through?
You know, the wildest thing is I didn't. I think I have more imposter syndrome today being in this for 7 years than I did in the beginning because
Really?
I was, yes, because I was at this place where I was like, I've never been here before. So you literally are the guide. So my only option is to obey you because I don't have a job. My husband looking like, I don't really, this sounds crazy, but I trust the God in you and that's what we're going with. So I was like, God, I have to do everything you're telling me to do the way you're telling me to do it because that's the only way it will work.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's wow. So this is crazy. So you were obedient. You left your job. You started doing the prayer at live at 10 p.m. And then you started to see the path a little bit clearer. When did you know that this is it? I've finally met my purpose. This all is making sense for me.
That same lady. So I went back to her and I said, "Hey, God said that I can do this class. I don't know what it's going to consist of. So you and I are going to get together. And we're just going to follow what we hear God saying." And she was like, "Oh, no, not you and me. I already got 10 of my friends. I'm going to bring them too."
What?
So my first class, that is now known as PFP or Purposeful Prayer Accelerator, was with 11 women, and that same lady also asked me to be the keynote speaker for her conference that year. And so that was when I was like, oh, this is what I was called to do.
Yeah, and listen, you didn't need no Facebook ads, you didn't need no reels, you didn't need no teachable, thinkific, none of that stuff, and just automatically, like, I don't know if you realize, I'm sure you do, how amazing and profound this is that God moved that way in your life for him to just like tailor make this this career, this journey for you, but then give you your first amount of students and you didn't even do nothing but just be obedient. You got students. Oh my God.
Yes.
And a keynote.
Right. I was like, I didn't never speak before except for at work in this corporate environment. She's like, that's fine. God said to choose you. I said, oh, okay. Well, me and God gonna be up there talking because I don't know what I'm gonna.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. So you had the class and I'm sure you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna teach, but I'm gonna just let God lead me. Like, I'll be there. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I would literally like when I would meet with them, I went to God originally and I was like, okay, what are we going to do? And so he gave me a little bit of an outline, not very much. And they were one-on-one sessions. So I would meet with the one person. They would kind of, talk, and then I would hear what he was saying to say to them. And then we would do like prophetic journaling together. It of course has now built in such a big way since then, but it was literally I would just be telling them things I heard him saying or would see, and we would do the prophetic journaling, and that would give them their instructions of okay, what to do next, what has he been telling you to do that you've been ignoring, so now we're 7 years in, and now we have retreats and conferences and all the things. So
7 years in. And so when things started to manifest for you and for your business, what was your husband's reaction and your mom?
Well, my husband's reaction, because I meet with people on the computer, so they would just see me go in my office and be in these meetings. They didn't really understand. But in 2020, actually during COVID. The Lord had instructed me to host my very first in person conference.
Mm.
And my husband was like, "Oh my gosh, what you're doing is really changing people's lives." Because number one, we had an in-person conference in the midst of COVID, and he was like, "You're gonna do this," and I was like, "This is what God is telling me to do." No,
Wow.
nobody out of 100 people, nobody left that conference and did not get COVID. Like out of all the people that were there, no mask, no nothing. People were there sharing their testimonials of how, like, one young lady was thinking about committing suicide, and then she connected with me, and because of what God told her in that moment, like her entire life changed. She graduated high school, wasn't planning on graduating. Um,
Wow.
and so just the testimonies and just my husband being able to see it in person, and my mom was there as well. They were like, "Oh my gosh, God is really using you." And now we went to Dubai and uh,
What?
Bali and Cabo, and yeah. We actually did baptism in the Persian Gulf in Dubai in front of Muslims. Like, yeah, it's been. I am blown away every day that God, you saw me in a corporate cubicle and thought all of this. Like, wow.
Wow. Wow. And that's just a great testament to the things that you experience in life, that you can find beauty in the
Hmm.
mess, right? You
Yeah.
found the beauty in the mess and the horrible things that you experienced, that you are who you are today because you went through that.
Yes. Very much so.
Because I don't think that if you didn't go through that, then you wouldn't be in the space where you can walk people through their healing journey, because you had yet to go through yours.
Yours. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So it gives you that language that is relatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, a lot of people, they may not be battling infertility, but a lot of people are like, I feel like I'm doing all the things, but you still haven't shown up, right? And
Yeah.
that was my journey. Um, but it's allowing God to reveal to you, because a lot of times, a lot of things that I was saying to God was, "God, I have all the things for kids," and He's like, "But you
Mm.
haven't done all the work for the kids." And that's
Mm.
a lot of us today, right? We've done all the things. You've checked these boxes off, but have you dealt with the little girl on the inside of you that's screaming
Yeah.
louder than you, right? And so that's why I love what I do, because you do have all those accolades, you do have all those things, but you're still jealous of everybody around you.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of times we forget that we do have to do some inner work, right? That may be seeing a therapist, that may be seeing a life coach, or someone like yourself. There may be things that are holding us back from us reaching our full potential as an entrepreneur, as a career person, as a mom, as a dad, whoever it is. But I think we discount that part. We don't think
Hmm.
about that inner part, like, it really doesn't matter. I've been through some hurt and some pain, and I've healed, but I don't think it's really going to affect any other part of my life. But au contraire, it will.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know
in big
that.
ways. Yeah.
You know that. So tell me, why is it important? And speak to the entrepreneurs, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman. Why is it important for us to do the inner work?
It's so important to do the inner work, because regardless of whether you acknowledge it or not, when you don't do it, you're bleeding on other people, right?
Mm,
I think about Destiny pre Prayerpy times three, because I feel like God has me go through this process like constantly, right? The higher
mm,
He takes you, the deeper the healing is. Um, I was super passive aggressive, super like
mm,
bitter, right? And I think about even the people I work with, like, they self sabotage. Like, they can be the best at their craft, but it can't even resonate with them when people are saying, "Oh my gosh, look all you've done." And because it doesn't resonate, they're still just constantly chasing after more and more accolades, not realizing the reason why it's not settling is because you haven't dealt with the feeling of your mom not ever telling you that she's proud of you,
mm-hmm,
right? And
mm-hmm,
so, but you also have created, like, for me, right? My mom used to work a lot. And so I used to be like, I would never do that to my kids. I'm so glad God got me out of corporate and I could be present, be home for my kids. But then what I started to see was I was always in my business. Always, I'm
mm.
doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my kids. No, you're not, because they're asking you to come play sorry with them. So are you doing it for them, or are you doing it for what
Wow.
it looks like, right? And
Yeah.
there's a I have is what we fail to confront, we end up recreating without knowing. And that's true, right? You realize, ask yourself, how many times have you been talking to your children and be like, oh my gosh, I sound just like my mom, or I sound just like my dad,
Right,
right?
right.
The same way they used to talk to you that you didn't like, you end up hearing it and being
Yeah.
it because you never dealt with it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's important, and for those that are listening or watching, if you find there's some things or areas in your life that tend to creep up that hold you back from being your best self, you may need to do a little bit of journaling. You may need to do some inner healing to work on, whatever it is that's holding you back. But you known from your experience working with hundreds of people that the healing is possible. It's there, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
do the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. So tell me, is it important for you, since you do a lot of healing work, is it important for you to take time for self-care?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do. I usually do a sabbatical. Things have changed a little bit this year because we changed when the conference is, but I usually take a sabbatical October, November, December. So we would
Mm.
usually have the conference, come out of the conference, and the whole remainder of the year, I would be not on social media, not really answering emails. I would tell everybody, like, hey, I'm on
Wow.
sabbatical. Not like, and even like my personal friends, I wouldn't take very many phone calls just because I wanted to shut everything down to be present for my family, but more importantly, to be present with God. Because one thing about this journey, especially in entrepreneurship, sometimes something will start to taste and feel so good that you don't feel when God's telling you to give him that plate back, right?
Mm.
And society will tell you, oh my God, you just hosted a conference, release the next conference so you can get these tickets sold. I never release next year's conference tickets because there may be a year he says don't do it. And I'm willing to not do it regardless of how much I make from it. The same with my retreats, the same with everything I offer. And so, yeah, um, October, November, December is usually when I take the whole time off. But also, periodically, like the whole month of May, he told me not to do Prayerpy at all. So I haven't been doing
Wow.
Prayerpy at all. I had like 6 people on my calendar that had already booked, and I
Mm-hmm.
took them. But no, and I will shut it down at any moment because at the end of the day, I'm not doing this because I want to do this. I'm doing this because he's telling me to do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's your calling. And
Yeah,
you're definitely being led by the spirit. Because he's gonna take care of you. If you had nothing for the whole year,
yeah,
you are taken care of. Wow,
yeah.
that's I love that. Do you have any advice, because we talked about a faith walk and more of a faith leap, right, off a cliff. Do you have any advice for aspiring entrepreneurs that are embarking on a leap of faith to pursue their dreams? Do you have any advice for them if they're struggling, teeter tottering?
My advice would be number one, whether you hear from God or not, if there's any inclination you're getting about things to do, don't ignore it.
Mm.
Before he told me to leap, he was telling me to create a schedule, live by a schedule, and I was not doing that. He was telling me save this, save my money a certain way. I was not doing that, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is don't be so afraid to bet on yourself. Like
Mm.
there are some of us that continually, day after day, wake up and show up for people and overexert. There's this wall, this thing I have on my wall right now, and it says, "Destiny, how are you keeping your word to yourself this year?" And it has a
Mm.
list of things that I have to be conscious of doing because when I look at the list, I do that for people every day, right? But
Yeah.
when it comes to myself, it's like, oh, I'll get around to it. And you jumping is really you doing something for yourself. Now, if you're not at the point where you're okay with putting yourself first, say it's for other people first, so it'll make you do it. But really, put yourself first because you're only as good
Yeah.
to other people how good you are to yourself. And number three, I would say you can always get a job, right? Like there's always a job out there for you to get. But what you don't want to do is get to the end of your life and resent not betting on you, not
Yeah.
trying it, right? Now, the fourth thing I would say is don't leave your job if you ain't being instructed to leave it, okay? Because
Right.
there are definitely some moments that come with entrepreneurship that you don't know what your bank account is going to look like. You don't know,
Yeah.
when your money's going to come in. Um, I'm grateful that I had God that instructed me to do it, so I knew He would cover me in all those spaces, and He has.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not getting that instruction, don't just allow social media to tell you to jump when you're not necessarily ready either. I do like to tell people that, but bet on yourself. Like, bet on yourself. When you look up the greats, right? Steve Jobs, Amazon, or Bezos, right? They didn't have a plan. They just believed in themselves enough to jump. So
Wow. Bet on yourself and believe in yourself enough to jump. Words for the rest of the year, honestly, because we don't bet on ourselves.
mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes from the stuff that's happening on the inside, right? Things we
Mm-hmm.
tell ourselves, fear, failure, past experiences. We don't bet on ourselves. And like you said, we're missing out on the life that we could have that's designed for us. But because we don't want to take that leap of faith, we don't bet on ourselves, then we're going to constantly live in this space of what if, should haves,
Mm-hmm.
and could haves. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
this last thing. I sing and play at funerals. That's what I do. It's always been, I was born to be a musician and a singer. But oftentimes when I do gravesite funerals, I look at the stones and, the person that passed away there when they were born and when they passed away. And I'm often thinking, like, how many dreams and businesses were never launched because of people that feel the way that we do sometimes, that they didn't bet on themselves. How many of those are living in the grave? And I don't want that to be for any of us, to not bet on ourselves, that, your dream, you're worth every dream that's inside of you being birthed and coming to life.
Yeah.
Coming to life. Man, this has been like the greatest conversation that I've had this week. It is only in the beginning of the week. I cannot believe it. If you were to speak to the younger Destiny, what would you tell her?
Wow. If I could speak to the younger Destiny, I would tell her your voice matters.
Hmm.
Speak up.
Wow. And why
Yeah.
your voice? Why do you say that your voice matters?
For I can't remember for how long, but growing up I was so timid. I was so like shy. I would just be in my head like, oh, what if I say it the wrong way? Um,
Hmm.
and I now know, of course, doing deeper work, that was a strategy, an attack of the enemy to make me stay quiet, because when I speak, things change, atmospheres shift, people's
Wow.
lives change, right? And so
Wow.
that's what I would tell her: no, speak up, no, open your mouth. Because I would kind of whisper, I would be like, yeah,
Hmm.
and now I know, no, speak up, open your mouth, say what's on your heart, ask the questions. Yeah, that's what I would tell her.
Wow. Your voice matters. And in the words of Dr. Miles Monroe, stop robbing the world of your gift.
Yeah.
The world needs what you have to offer. So, Destiny, thank you so much for doing the beautiful work that you're doing, because you are changing lives, and you're impacting so many people, and that is helping them be who they're called and designed to be. And I appreciate your time, and we're going to be sharing your information. And I'm excited to see what the next 7 years looks like for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience before we go that you have coming up? I know you're taking a break during the month of May. Do you have anything coming up that we can support you in this year to come?
Absolutely. We are hosting our fourth annual conference on July 18th and 19th here in Virginia Beach. And the theme is Joseph's Arise, the Last Shall Be First.
Hmm.
And so I would just encourage you to share it, to come if you are open to coming. But we are really honing in on the preparation, being prepared for what's to come. And that's why the conference is called Prophetic Reloaded Conference, because it's where you come to be reloaded and realigned with the prophetic. God is a preparer. He wants us to be prepared for what's to come in
Yeah.
our lives personally, but in the earth. And so, yeah, that's what I have going on. And then Prayerpy, my 8 week program. We The wait list is now open for purpose filled prayer, where you can
Okay.
come to build your confidence in your ability to hear the voice of God, but also realign your vision
Hmm.
with God's vision so you can see it manifest in your life.
Now, is there any opportunities for people to work with you that don't live in Virginia Beach?
Oh yeah, so the purpose filled prayer.
Okay.
And Prayerpy sessions, the one-on-one sessions, they're online. So I work with people even in other countries. So yeah, you can sign up for a session or for my program, and you can live anywhere.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, we're going to be sharing her information. Y'all check her out. Y'all go get your healing. Go get your healing so you can be who you called to be in this earth. Thank you so much, Destiny. I look forward to connecting with you again.
Thank you.